Hi, this is John Macy from OzBiz with part 2 of our video on processing invoices for your various properties into MYOB. So I'd like to continue where we basically left off last time and to show you some of the additional processes and features that this particular function has. So let's start at the top here by putting something in. Select the date. Let's put an invoice number. Let's put an amount, and let's say that we're not going to pay this one off. We need to, so it's not paid by anybody because it's an unpaid invoice. We'll put a header memo, and we'll say that this is for Hills Road. So it's entered it into the grid. Now it's cycled through to the top. Let's say the same thing again. Oops, don't really want that, so we'll say no. Let's go back here. Okay, it's defaulted to our expense type. Let's leave that because that's correct. Now this time let's increment the date by 2 days by pressing the plus key twice. 2021 invoice number. Let's have an amount of let's say $330, $30 GST, nothing paid. It's leapfrogged over the fields that would be used if we were paying something. Let's put a memo in. Now what you can do in our program is you can split purchases across various properties, and you do that by pressing the F2 key. So in this particular select property combo box, so let's press the F2 key, and we're getting a message, and the message is basically saying that you cannot split an invoice that has not been fully paid. Now the sense in this is that the complexity involved in trying to split across various properties an invoice that isn't paid creates an enormous amount of complexity. So the decision has been made that whilst you can split invoices, you can only split invoices that have been fully paid for. And what this is saying here is you can either get your supplier to issue separate invoices by property or pay the invoice totally. So we say okay, we got the message. Let's go back to here. We tab over, and you'll recall that pressing the plus key fills this with the $330. Now we need to say okay, look, we paid for this out of our personal account. We paid for it by check, and the check number was 1234. Now let's come down here and press the F2 function key again. Okay, what this is going to enable us to do is to split this $330 across the properties that we have. So let's say that we have this personal one, repairs and maintenance, it's going to default to, let's say it was $110 and $10, and we'll have a personal memo. Let's say that we Hills Road, let's say it was 110 and 10, and we go Hills Road memo, and then let's say we have the Glen repairs and maintenance, let's just say 90 and 10, and let's say the Glen. Now obviously what this is going to mean is that we haven't actually apportioned the full amount of $330. We've only apportioned 310, but if we say OK, we're going to get a message that says you must allocate the amount exactly across your properties. So we say OK. Let's come back to the Glen. Let's make that 110 and 10 for the Glen, and we say OK. And what that's done now is apportioned those three amounts across the three properties and put them into our grid here. Now there's a few things we can do with our grid. Let's say that we have an entry in here that we want to take out. So by clicking this called a row selector on the left hand side here of the grid, that selects the full row, and if I press the delete key on the keyboard, it actually deletes that particular row. Now what happens if we press if we select this row here and we want to try and delete that? Well, bear in mind this is a split, so if we try and delete one row of the split, that's going to create problems. So when we press the delete key, we get the message that says the row you want to delete is a multiple split, the other rows will also be deleted. Do you want to continue? And if I say yes I do, it's going to delete the whole transaction, the 3 rows that were involved. So okay, that's handy. Let's go back and let's it thinks I'm trying to add a new supplier, so let's come back here. We've got Capital Works, linked to Capital Works. Let's make it repairs and maintenance. Let's increment the date by another day. Let's have an invoice number of 7878. Let's go again with our $330.30 plus key. Let's say we do this in the personal check account, check. Now I've just pressed the plus key because it remembered the check number from before and it's incremented the check number by 1. So let's say that this is a header memo, and let's try and split this again across the 3 properties. So here we have personal 110 and 10, the Glen 110 and 10, and Hills Road 110 and 10. Okay, now what you can do is, if this is something that occurs regularly, this particular purchase, you can save it as a recurring transaction, which means that it saves you the typing that we've just gone through. To save this as a recurring transaction, all you need to do is right click in the grid and it says save as a recurring transaction, and we can save this as let's say regular monthly purchase Bunnings Kempsey, and say OK, and it's saved it. Now we could then go on and simply post this information to MYOB. Let's do that. So first things first, it's checking the registration that we've got sitting behind this to make sure everything is correct. Yes, it is. Saying OK. I've now got information which I need to post, and there are 3 different MYOB company dialer files involved, and I need to put data into each of those 3. Bear in mind this was a purchase that was paid for out of my personal bank account, but it is for purchases across 3 of my sites, so there are of course a host of implications involved. So it's opened MYOB, the first one for Hills Road, and it's put in 2 transactions. This particular video won't go into the MYOB side of things. We will stay here with the use of the program itself. Later videos will look at what happens within MYOB itself. So we've done Hills Road. We are posting data into the personal account, and now we are going to go off, open the MYOB company file for the Glen, and into the same, or the information that's required into the Glen. Now, a little bit slow this morning. This is the first time I've actually opened MYOB, and it gets a bit quicker as it warms up. Here we go. OK, and that's completed. We say OK. So there's our blank form. ready for the next transaction. But hey, let's say that we actually this is a week later or a month later, and we want to process that exact transaction again. So let's go here to the functions menu, and let's say show recurring transactions, and you'll see that there are actually 3 in here. And down the bottom here is the one that says regular. It's an invoice, and it's our regular monthly purchase from Bunnings at Kempsey. So let's select that, and let's say refill the grid. It asks for a password. Now we've pre-entered the password into this. At the very start, we'd suggest you work with the OzBiz team to ensure that all of this is being done properly, and on that basis we will need to enter the password for you. So we say OK, whammo. There we are. There's exactly the same transaction with the invoice date. Let's just clear the form, and I'll do that again. So this button here, it allows me to show you this button as well, clears the form. So yes, we want to clear the form. Let's go back to our recurring transactions, because I did miss showing you something then. Let's say refill the grid. Now we can refill the grid and nominate a new date. Bearing in mind this is a month later, we could actually say the 19th of July and say OK, and you'll notice here that the invoice date has changed to the 19th of July. There's exactly the same invoice entered with basically a couple of mouse clicks. This ability to right click in the grid and save as a recurring transaction and then bring that recurring transaction out exists for not only for invoices but for income and the transfer of money, as you can see from these other forms which are sitting behind here. So let's come back to our invoices for a moment. Let's just recap what we've shown. We've shown that you can split purchases across your properties as long as the invoice is fully paid for, and the split form will make sure that you are splitting the exact amount of money. That then populates the grid. You can delete items from the grid. If you delete a line or try and delete a line that is a multiple transaction, it will in fact give you the opportunity to either confirm that you want to delete the whole transaction or to cancel the deletion. You can use the clear form button to clear the form. Now if you say no, it will leave the grid exactly as it is. If you say yes, then it will clear the grid and clear the form if there is anything entered at the top here. The functions again allow you to show your recurring transactions. What you can also do is show your archive files. Now these are, as you post to MYOB, it will save into an archive file what you have processed. So here we can see we've got a number of transfers and invoices, and if we had done income, there would be income sitting there too, and it also shows you the date that that particular thing was created. Now if I go back and I select this and I say I want to refill the grid with this, it'll ask me for the password, which I've just put in, and it's taken from the archive and placed back into this grid. So basically that's a run through of how to handle invoices, and we will be following this video with obviously basically the same sorts of information in relation to both processing income and transferring money. So thanks again for your attention. We look forward to providing more information in the rest of this series of videos. Thank you.